Hello all. So this is Saurabh Dhani signing in. Um, this is a continuation of a previous video that you can find in the channel, and I'll add that somewhere here where you can see in the recording where was the part one for this. What happened is based on a request from a community member, someone wanted to understand how you can export data from Business Central into a JSON format, and I gave an example of how you can do it for a customer record, and that was working as expected. But then I assumed that, you know, that everybody will understand how to extend it if needed. But I guess my assumptions were wrong and I got quite a good amount of questions about it. So what we'll do is we'll continue from the same place where we left last time and move forward from there. And if you haven't watched the part one, just take a pause, uh, go to watch part one so that you understand the context of it, and then come back to continue this. What I'll do is I'll directly open the source code that we use for all these community questions, which is available on GitHub. So we created this code unit where we created an action or procedure, which then was referred. Let me see. Okay. So if you look at it, it was used on the customer list page. It works fine if you just have one customer selected. But the request is that what happens if I have multiple customers selected? So we'll not just learn that part, we'll also learn something else into it. So let's dive into it and let's try to understand what we have to do. So as we discussed last time, JSON is a name value pair combination, as you see in all these JSON name value pair. And then the one element of it, or one uh, is kind of referred in this JSON object, right? And when you have multiple items in an object, which is not here, but maybe in the launch.json, let me see. Like this is one configuration, right? If I have to add one more configuration, let's say to your own server, that adds one more uh, JSON item into it, right? So when we say that we have to export multiple customer, that means that the customers will each customer based on whatever user have selected will detail of that customer will come into this, and then for the new customer there will be one more node that will be created. So keeping that in mind, and we did this last time, if you remember, by creating this ship to address for customers. So it creates a array of if a customer have multiple ship to addresses like this. We don't have to change this. This is export customer as a JSON. Let's do this. Let's create one more method and let's name it as procedure export all customers as JSON. Or let's do this. Name it as it is so that you understand what I'm trying to do. Because if I do, yes, export, let's do this. Export selected customers as JSON. And what we'll pass again is the same record of selected customer. Now, what will this function do? This function, as we did here on the get ship to address, will apply the same logic for the customer in this case, where it creates an array, clears that array, and sets that up, right? So for that, let's create a JSON object here for customer. Let's call it as customers JSON, and that will be a JSON object. Inside this, what we'll do is we'll say customer JSON, customers JSON, and add a new customer into it because it's an array, and we call the array as customers, and then we'll need to get an array out of it. And if you're watching it for first time, do go and watch the previous one because that's where I explain it. Remember this example where you add the ship to address and then you get an array out of it. So now we need to have a function which will run for each customer in this pool, and generate the uh, array of customers out of it. So let's call that function as export customer as JSON, and we will pass it the customer record. Okay, but this one does not returns anything, so this is not expected. It needs something. So what we can do in AL, if you don't know about it yet, that you can have two procedures with the same name unless their skeleton is different. I hope that works. Sometime I say things which may not work, so I should be very clear about it. So let's try doing a return value to this with customer JSON array, which returns an JSON array. At this point, the compiler is smart enough to understand that this is a function which is returning this, and this is hmm, okay. That needs a different parameter. So parameters should be different. Sorry, because already defined a method, because there are two methods with the same name with same parameter types. So the parameters are same. So let's change it a little while. Let's pass another variable saying export all as boolean, just to kind of make it different, right? So we add this second parameter, which then accept these two functions because they have clearly different definition, and then you pass it as true here. Okay. Now what this function does? This function does as same as the previous one, which is doing the ship to thing. It kind of copies that model. So what you do? We called it as we copy this and we make it as the customer JSON object, and then we say we do a simple repeat until for my customer, right? And my until with my customer start makes it to 0 till the point all the customer kind of gets into that pool. And what I do in this point, I clear my this thing, the array, which I have done here also on the previous one. Let me collapse this so that we can just kind of copy and paste that model. So we find this and then we first clear this. And then in the JSON that we have, we can add the fields, which is again same as what's written here. I'll just copy this piece as it is, the customer thing, the ship to address thing as it is till here. So inside this loop, it should do this for all the customers that kind of found. But now I cannot do an export at this point because the export should happen once everything is added, which is somewhere here. So for that, and to save some time, let's select all this code and extract it to a procedure using AZAL extension and name that procedure as, oh, it did not happen. Okay, sometimes it didn't work, but let me try again. No, let me do advanced option. Okay, no, no. Okay, so the procedure name would be, let's say, export JSON file. What this tool, AZAL extension part does, it automatically identifies what parameters are needed and it does create it. Now, why it needed customer, I just need to understand it. Okay, because the customer, oh, because the customer number is used, which is on the file name. So what I can do is I can remove this. I'll surely need the JSON and I'll add one more parameter here and we'll call it file name, file name of type text. And then we'll plug this file name in here. Okay, and then the file name in case of when you're exporting single customer will be passed as customer.number. That fixes that. And this function kind of then can be utilized on my other area, which is here, and I can paste it here. Once kind of it generates the file. Now in this case, I would like to name the file as customer. Uh, hmm, and I can have everything over there, but yeah, let's do that. Mm, let me replace this with file name, kind of make it simple, and change it here to be something like this. So I can say that in this case, it becomes, it passes this value to the function, to the method, that it is exporting one single customer. And in this case, I will pass it to be uh, selected customers dot JSON. Hopefully that works. Okay, let's give it a try. Okay, so what we have done, we have created an additional function which kind of then runs for all the selected record, export them out, and then generates and downloads a file. But to do that, we'll also have to add this function into, let me make it local. We'll have to add this function on the customer list page. So let's go back to our page extension. Here we already have one, and let's add one more. And this, so I'll just copy this as it is, and I'll call it as download multiple JSONs, or sorry, multiple download selected, selected, or yeah, selected download. Okay, nobody sees this. JSONs. Okay. Okay, what this action is called is not listed here. So let's do a caption. Download selected customer, and it can be one if needed, and that's okay. And this is also gets added here. Download one customer, or maybe we place it on customer card if needed. Kind of being more realistic on that, right? And then I'll use this method in this case, and that should do the magic. So now let's try to publish this and see what happens in our customer's card once it kind of gets published. So this should get published on our sandbox. And at this point, if we have one customer selected, you can still use the new one that will download one, and we'll see how it is different than how the two files are different. So now it's running to the central environment, and it should be directly going to the customer list page where we should be able to see these action. Okay. So what I'm doing, and I just changed the name because I was doing some other testing. Somewhere here, there should be an action, which I did not create. It was on the new style, which I should have done. So download customer, which just downloads one customer, not a problem. And then again from here, let's do the download selected customer, again one customer. Okay. And then this time, let's select three customers and do the customer download selected customer. So now we have three files. The customer one.json contain the three should contain the three customers, and the first two files should contain that one customer in different format, and you'll be able to see the difference pretty easy. So here are the files, and let me compare these two first. because they should represent the same object more or less. Let's do a comparison, and what you'll see, you can't see it here on this one. So let's open this one, okay, and we'll see nothing came in. Hmm, interesting. What if we open this one? So the initial one is still working. If you put it on the JSON beautifier that I've seen in other videos, you'll be able to see how you can uh, you can see the results out of it. So let's try to do a values here. Let's paste it, and you'll see that one customer was downloaded. Correct. So now what went wrong into our another piece because it said nothing. Let's have a look. So we created a customer JSON object. We did call the export customer as JSON with passed value as customer. But this method, when we pass it, took this and then export all is not used. That's okay. And then it is supposed to return the customer JSON array. Okay. So what I did not do here, I did add this, but then if you look at here, which is not this one, the ship to address, sometime you kind of forget to copy paste. I also have to add that into the array that will be returned, which is this array, kind of adds each and individual customer. I should have done this and did a add of my the current customer JSON, single customer JSON. This way, it'll add all that JSON into it. My mistake. I should have taken that into account. But yeah, that happens when you start copying and pasting things between environments. So now what we'll do is we'll again try to export that value out and see what comes out of it. So this time what we are going to do is we will be selecting three customers, again the same customers, and let's try to do a download selected customers. If everything goes well, it should have three customers. It seems it have, but let's verify that by going into validator and trying to validate this new thing. So now if you look at it, it did download the customer 1000, the fields that you wanted, the multiple ship to address for that customer, and then that closes a node. For 20,000, it does create the same thing, same for 30,000, and so on and so forth. But all that is encapsulated in one parent object array, more or less, which is the customers array. And then each of these nodes represent one single entity. Now, if you keep one customer selected, which is this one, and try to do a customer download selected customer, what happens with that is you kind of copy this and let's go back to beautifier and let's try to validate it. Can I do it both at the same time? Okay, no, that doesn't seem correct. Let me go back. This is selected customer one, and this time because it seems I did not select anything, so it kind of copied everything rather than one. Yes, 30, 40, 50, and 60,000. It did copy everything, which is not needed. So I can go back and actually select this. Okay, so I'll need to select at least two. So the difference between the first file and the second file, if you notice, is that your first file, which is this customer 1000, is a little bit different how when you format it. Remember this customer node at the parent level, and then each customer as a child of it. When you paste the new one or the old one, which is this, let me remove this, you will notice that this will not have that node. Okay. that again. Might have messed it up. Okay, let's paste it here and let's validate it. So now if you notice, it is just representing one entity and you can't add more because it is not an array of it. But when you look at the new output that we just generated out of it, which is here, you will notice that it creates a parent node of customers so that all those customer kind of sits within it. So that kind of how whenever you try to do a entity export uh, from Visual Studio Code using uh, using the JSON objects, you need to keep that in mind that what objects, what kind of a structure you want based on your customer need, and then how you can achieve it. So let me open that code again if I can. Anytime you have to create an array, you start with something like this, and then you have to create a sub function which loops in on that record and adds that into the array. So then that array kind of gets added into the file inside as a child for this node. Whatever you name the title of it will be considered as a part of it. Like we named customers here, which represent multiple customers. And then each customer comes from here with a sub array of ship to address, which again gets calculated based on the same. So to summarize what we learned today, one, you need to identify the structure that you need your customer need at this point when you are developing it. Is it one single entity? Is it multiple entities? What kind of format they need? What are the nomenclature of the nodes that they need? And then utilize the right function from this library, either the all one or the single one, and use that to have your customer download the right set of data as they want. The other thing, you can have two functions with the same name until unless they have different parameters. It doesn't matter, which I learned today. I always thought all this time, maybe without trying it, that you, if the signature is different, which is if I just add the exit variable, it might differ in the signature, which is not correct. You also need to have the parameters as different. And if the parameters are different, then you're good there, right? And just to kind of eliminate this error, I can just add a condition here, which is if not export all, then exit. Right? So that utilizes it. But the beauty is now I have this function as it is, and also this function as it is, which are the same function, which is not possible in any VDS for sure, but they have a different signature based on number of parameters that are being passed. And then it does the magic. Like, but before we go, I just want to test one more thing. What happens if I remove this? It will be an error. We know that because from there we started. But what if I change this as pass by reference? Would that be a different signature? Let's wait for it. It doesn't seem so. What if I name it as my customer? Will that be a different signature? Not exactly. So it is actually looking at from the perspective of what data type or data item or uh, reference that you're passing. It is not. It doesn't matter what is the written value. Is that different or not? It doesn't even matter. Are you passing by reference or passing by value? What matters is how many parameters you have, which are different than the previous one. And you can create a number of functions like this in Business Center. It will not stop you. So hope you learned something new. People who had messaged me here and there, emails, chats, and all, you'll get an answer for it. And if you learn something new, do share this video. If you're new to this channel, please do subscribe to this channel. And there will be a lot of videos coming in here and there. If you have any questions, add it into the comments, and I'll happy to answer those. Thank you. See you next time.